Hello, my name is Ken, and welcome to my 14-question quiz about the American Old West. You know, the American Old West wasn't just about cowboys and Indians and bad outlaws and saloon fights, because there were many other interesting things that happened during the 1800s. In 1854, there was a New York newspaper editor named Horace Greeley who said these famous words, "Go west, young man, and grow up with the country," and many thousands of people did. This quiz is strictly for educational purposes and for having fun, so there is no passing or failing. But if you're one of those folks who just must count, then each question is worth about 7 points. And with all that said, let's get started. Good luck, and here we go. Question 1. In what year did the first civilian covered wagon trains begin in the American Old West? Was it A, 1830? Or was it B, 1840? Or was it C, 1850? Or was it D, 1870? The answer is B, 1840. It was a time in American history when many thousands of people wanted to move west in search of a new life. Some folks wanted to go because of the free land, while other folks were just in search of fame or fortune. And back in those days, before the Continental Railroad was built, there was really only about 4 different ways for people to get to the West Coast. You could take either a very long ship voyage around South America, or you could walk, or you could ride a horse, or you could drive a covered wagon. And it is estimated that over the next 30 years, from the 1840s, 50s, and right on through the 1860s, that there were approximately 500,000 people who migrated west to California, Oregon, and Washington Territory. And the biggest majority of those folks chose to go by covered wagon in a wagon train because it was a dangerous trip and there is safety in numbers. After the Continental Railroad was completed in 1869, the wagon trains became obsolete and they began to fade away into history. And by 1880, most people were traveling by railroads, and the civilian wagon trains were mostly all gone. Question 2. Which Old West 1800s wagon train trail is considered to be the most well known? Is it A, the Santa Fe Trail? Or is it B, the California Trail? Or is it C, the Oregon Trail? Or is it D, the Mormon Pioneer Trail? The answer is C, the Oregon Trail. The 2,170-mile long Oregon Trail was a very dangerous 5-month journey from St. Joseph, Missouri to Oregon City, Oregon, and it's been called our nation's longest cemetery because of the many thousands of deaths that occurred during the many wagon train journeys across the Oregon Trail. And most of the deaths that occurred were caused by various kinds of diseases like cholera and infections that were caused by various kinds of accidents and some other things like snake bites. Life on a wagon train was very harsh. There was basically just 2 different kinds of covered wagons that were used in a typical wagon train. There was the large covered wagon with its big wheels that was manufactured by the Conestoga Company in Pennsylvania. and it could carry up to 12,000 pounds of cargo. But the most popular covered wagon that was used in a wagon train was slightly smaller than a Conestoga, and it was called a prairie schooner, and it was manufactured by the Studebaker brothers in Indiana. The large covered wagons were usually pulled by teams of oxen, while the smaller covered wagons were pulled by either mules or horses. A typical wagon train usually consisted of about 35 to 40 covered wagons and about 75 to 100 people. But there were some wagon trains that were much larger. Question 3. In what year was gold first discovered in California? Was it A, 1847? Or was it B, 1848? Or was it C, 1849? Or was it D, 1850? The answer is B, 1848. On January the 24th, 1848, a man named James Marshall was building a water-powered sawmill on the banks of the American River, located at the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountain range, when he discovered a gold nugget. The property was owned by Mr. John Sutter, and that location would become famously known as Sutter's Mill, California. Within a year, the news of gold being discovered in California traveled all across the United States and even into other countries. And that's what created the famous 1849 gold rush. And it is estimated that there was approximately 300,000 prospectors who poured into California, seeking their fame and their fortune. And yes, it's true, there were some prospectors who did strike it rich, but the majority of the prospectors did not, because all they found was just a lot of hard work with little bitty pay. And many prospectors only found chiggers, ticks, and snake bites, and that was it. It has been estimated that between 1848 and 1855 that there was approximately 750,000 pounds of gold that was discovered in California. And even to this very day, there are still several working gold mines in that part of California. Question 4. In 1859, where was the largest silver deposit discovered in U.S. history and would become known as the Comstock Lode? Was it A, Sutter's Mill, California? Or was it B, Cripple Creek, Colorado Territory? Or was it C, Virginia City, Nevada Territory? Or was it D, Deadwood, Dakota Territory? The answer is C, Virginia City, Nevada Territory. In the 1850s, Virginia City, Nevada Territory was just a very small mining camp with no name. But in 1859, when a large silver deposit was discovered, the small no-name mining camp started quickly growing when thousands of miners and prospectors started coming for the silver, and the town very quickly grew to about 30,000 citizens, and it became a true Wild West town with many saloons, many gambling parlors, and many dancing girls. And there were plenty of gunfights and two-fisted law. The Wild West town supposedly got its name from one of its local drunks who was from Virginia and who the local miners called Old Virginie. And legend has it that one night when Old Virginie was drunk, he busted a bottle of booze and christened the miners' camp Virginia City, and the name stuck. The large silver deposit that would become known as the Comstock Lode was named after one of the local prospectors named Henry Comstock, who had the nickname Old Pancakes and who literally went from rags to riches overnight. It has been estimated that the Comstock Lode has produced approximately 15 million pounds of pure silver and approximately 500,000 pounds of pure gold. And today there are still several working silver and gold mines in Virginia City, Nevada. Question 5. Making its first 2,000-mile relay ride on April the 3rd, 1860, how long did the Pony Express stay in business? Was it A, 12 months? Or was it B, 18 months? Or was it C, 2 years? Or was it D, 4 years? The answer is B, 18 months. The Pony Express started in St. Joseph, Missouri, and it went 2,000 miles to Sacramento, California. The Pony Express riders changed horses every 2 hours, and a new rider would take over every 75 to 100 miles. The Pony Express horse ride went on 24/7, day and night, and depending on the weather conditions, it usually took about 8 days to get from St. Joseph, Missouri to Sacramento, California. The special made saddlebag that carried the 40 pounds of mail was called a mochila, and a mochila had a padlock on it, so nobody could tamper with the contents. The Pony Express service only lasted 18 months, from April of 1860 to October of 1861, because when the transcontinental telegraph was completed in October of 1861, the Pony Express service was no longer needed. So the Pony Express and all of its riders faded into history. Question 6. During the American Old Wild West and on February the 13th, 1866, where did the first daytime bank robbery occur? Was it A, Liberty, Missouri? Or was it B, Dodge City, Kansas? Or was it C, El Paso, Texas? Or was it D, Yuma, Arizona Territory? The answer is A, Liberty, Missouri. And not only was it the very first daytime bank robbery in the American Old Wild West, it was also the very first James Younger Gang bank robbery. And from that Liberty, Missouri bank, the Clay County Savings Association, the outlaw gang took away approximately $60,000 in bonds, paper currency, silver coins, and gold coins. And during the gang's getaway, a short gunfight broke out, and one innocent citizen bystander was accidentally killed. The bank that they robbed in Liberty, Missouri, was located only 12 miles from Jesse and Frank James' farm near Kearney, Missouri. Question 7. Who was the first sheriff and the co-founder of the Long Branch Saloon in Dodge City, Kansas? Was it A, Charles E. Bassett, elected sheriff on June the 5th, 1873? Or was it B, Bat Masterson, elected sheriff on November the 6th, 1877? Or was it C, Wyatt Earp, appointed deputy sheriff in 1878? Or was it D, Matthew Matt Dillon, elected marshal in June 1872? The answer is A, Charles E. Bassett. Sheriff Bassett served 2 terms as the sheriff of Dodge City, Kansas, and since the Kansas Constitution would not allow a 3rd term, the famous lawman Bat Masterson won the election by 3 votes on November the 6th, 1877, and then Sheriff Bat Masterson appointed the former sheriff, Sheriff Bassett, as his deputy sheriff. In 1878, the famous lawman Wyatt Earp did serve as a deputy sheriff in Dodge City, Kansas for a short period of time. Oh, and by the way, if any of you out there answered D, U.S. Marshal Matt Dillon, then you really need to go back to school and restudy your history. Because in the real Old West, while the Long Branch Saloon was for real, U.S. Marshal Matt Dillon and Miss Kitty were not. They were fictitious characters on the old TV show Gunsmoke. Back in the 1800s, Dodge City had a bad reputation for being a rough and tough and wild western town. And that's where that old saying started that is still with us today. If you want to be in a place that is safe and peaceful, then you better get out of Dodge. Question 8. During the old Wild West and beginning in 1875, what was the nickname of the most notorious stagecoach robber? Was it A, Dangerous Dapper Don? Or was it B, Fast Firing Fred? Or was it C, Cunning Cowboy Ken? Or was it D, Gentleman Black Bart? The answer is D, Gentleman Black Bart. His real name was Charles Bowles, but he went by the nickname Black Bart because after each stagecoach robbery, he would leave behind at the scene of the crime and inside the empty strongbox that he had robbed some poetry that he wrote, and he would sign it Black Bart. His stagecoach victims said that he was dressed in black, he was very well spoken, he was very well mannered, and he was a real gentleman. Between 1875 and 1883, Black Bart robbed 28 different Wells Fargo stagecoaches in Northern California and in parts of Oregon. But, just like all other criminals, he was eventually caught, and he was sent to the San Quentin prison. During the period of the American Old Wild West, there was a total of 456 stagecoach robberies, and that person who often sat next to the stagecoach driver carried a shotgun. And that term is still with us today, riding shotgun. And there's something else too. That long board where the driver would rest his boots on was called a dashboard because that board was put there to dash off any mud or horse manure that the horses might be kicking up with their hooves. And that term is also still with us today. the dashboard in your car, and that's how it got its name, the dashboard. Question 9. Which black person was a runaway slave? And in 1875, he went on and became a famous U.S. Deputy Marshal. Was it A, Frederick Douglass? Or was it B, Nat Turner? Or was it C, Bass Reeves? Or was it D, Booker T. Washington, Jr.? The answer is C, Bass Reeves. In 1875, Bass Reeves was appointed U.S. Deputy Marshal by Judge Isaac Parker, the hanging judge, at Fort Smith, Arkansas. And U.S. Deputy Marshal Bass Reeves became very well known and very famous when he helped clean up the outlaws out of the Indian Territory of Oklahoma. And during his 32 years as a lawman, U.S. Deputy Marshal Bass Reeves killed 14 bad outlaws. And in addition to that, he arrested and brought to justice many hundreds of other outlaws. Question 10. Injured in an 1876 gunfight, which famous Western lawman used a walking stick and wore a derby hat? Was it A, Charles Bassett? Or was it B, Heck Thomas? Or was it C, Virgil Earp? Or was it D, Bat Masterson? The answer is D, Bat Masterson. Before Bat Masterson became a famous lawman, he was a well-known buffalo hunter, a scout, and an Indian fighter when he fought at the Second Battle of Adobe Walls, Texas, in June of 1874. Bat Masterson and 27 other Texas buffalo hunters held off a large force of Comanche Indians. Later on, in January of 1876, when Bat Masterson was only 22 years old, he was in Sweetwater, Texas, when he got into an argument and a gunfight with a soldier over a woman. And during that gunfight, a bullet hit him in the pelvis, and that's why he had to use a walking cane for the rest of his life. And as the years went by and the Western history books were being written, Bat Masterson's walking cane and his derby hat became his trademark and a part of his legend. Question 11. Appointed Justice of the Peace in Val Verde County, Texas in 1882, which judge claimed he was the only law west of the Pecos River? Was it A, Judge Isaac C. Parker? Or was it B, Judge Samuel R. Peters? Or was it C, Judge Fantley Roy Bean? Or was it D, Judge James C. Strange? The answer is C, Judge Fantley Roy Bean. In 1882, Judge Roy Bean settled in a small railroad workers' camp called Langtry, Texas, located very near the Rio Grande River in Mexico, where he opened a saloon that he called the Jersey Lily because he was hopelessly in love with a British actress named Lily Langtry, and her stage name was the Jersey Lily. Judge Roy Bean never met the Jersey Lily, but he would very often send Miss Langtry love letters. And one time she even replied back to him and told Judge Roy Bean that she would like to buy the town of Langtry a new water pump. And Judge Roy Bean replied back to Miss Langtry and told her that he appreciated that offer for a new water pump, but that it would not be necessary because the good citizens of Langtry, Texas only drank whiskey. Judge Roy Bean used his saloon as his courtroom, and one time he even fined a dead man $40 for carrying a gun, and that $40 fine just happened to be the exact amount of money that dead man had in his pockets. Question 12. In which state or territory did the famous land run happen on April the 22nd, 1889? Was it A, New Mexico Territory? Or was it B, state of Kansas? Or was it C, state of Texas? Or was it D, Indian Territory, Oklahoma? The answer is D, Indian Territory, Oklahoma. Historians claim that it was total chaos and confusion on that day when approximately 50,000 settlers rushed in to claim their 160 acres of free land. And in the confusion, there were many people who were seriously injured or killed due to all kinds of accidents and even gunfights over land claims. And it's from that land run where we get the two terms, boomer, sooner. The Oklahoma boomers were those settlers who obtained their land legally, and the Oklahoma Sooners were those settlers who cheated to get their 160 acres of free land by rushing in a day or two early and ahead of everybody else. Question 13. What was the famous Johnson County War fought over in northern Wyoming from July of 1889 to May 1893? Was it A, eminent domain and roadway rights? Or was it B, grazing grass and water rights? Or was it C, railway rights through ranch properties? Or was it D, telegraph wiring rights over private properties? The answer is B, grazing grass and water rights. The Johnson County War is sometimes referred to as the Wyoming Range War, and the whole conflict mostly all started when farmers and homesteaders started moving into the county and then being accused of cattle rustling by the large ranchers. And then the cattle barons started trying to deny the homesteaders and the farmers any grazing or water rights for their small herd of cows. And then the whole thing turned into a big mess with many bad confrontations and conflicts. And then it really got nasty when 52 cattle barons got together and hired 22 Texas gunslingers to come to Wyoming and clean up Johnson County. And then after several people were killed and houses had been burned down, the bitter 4-year Johnson County War finally ended with some new land laws and a posse of 200 Wyoming lawmen, and when President Benjamin Harrison sent in the U.S. Army's 6th Cavalry. Question 14. In the 1880s and 1890s, which outlaw was the leader of the Wild Bunch Gang, also known as the Hole in the Wall Gang, in Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado? Was it A, Robert Leroy Parker? Or was it B, Harry Longabaugh? Or was it C, Harvey Logan? Or was it D, Ben Kilpatrick? The answer is A, Robert Leroy Parker. But he was best known by his alias name, Butch Cassidy. The other three names listed here were also members of the Wild Bunch Gang, and there were a few others. The Wild Bunch Gang was very well known for bank robberies and train robberies in the late 1800s. Historians claim that Butch Cassidy never did kill anybody, but it's believed that the Sundance Kid killed at least 8 people during his life of crime. In 1901, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, along with the Sundance Kid's girlfriend, Etta Place, all fled to South America. Now, I don't know anything for sure, and I'm only guessing, but the real Etta Place was probably not as pretty as Catherine Ross, who played the part of Etta Place in the 1969 Hollywood movie, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Nobody knows for sure exactly what happened to the desperados after they fled from the law and went to South America, but the one thing that is for sure is that there has been no shortage of theories. Some historians believe that Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid were both killed in a gunfight with the Bolivian army in San Vicente, Bolivia, in November of 1908, and other historians believe that all three eventually came back to the United States under new alias names, and they all went on to live a normal and law-abiding life. But the real truth may never be known and has been lost to history. Thank you very much for taking my 14-question quiz about the American Old West. And if you liked it, please click on that thumbs up like button and send me a comment. Thanks again, and goodbye.